we are on a path for Bitcoin becoming the reserve asset of the world. That's going to happen much sooner than people think.
Is it losing its ideological edge as part of this adoption?
The Federal Reserve is just a bunch of nerds. At the end of the day, the only power that they have is given to them through a democratic process.
There's just so much demand for this type of exposure. Like, what was the first meeting like? What was the sort of first interaction?
So first time I met Trump was at Trump Tower, and when we were pitching him on Bitcoin in general being part of his platform, and you know, I don't know, it was a cool experience. It was a weird experience, but it was cool. And you know, it's funny. He I guess he's such like a seasoned TV personality. He has the ability to just like flip like his persona from like joking and having a good time and you know being jovial to like business Trump, like decision time, like you know, like zeroed in on the question and then you know, he makes a decision and the decision is what it is and then it's go time. So it's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool how he just decided and almost brought this meme of him being the crypto president into reality. Like he has this way of like kind of like it's like a mimetic sort of thing where he's like making fun of something in a way, but as part of his like way of like endearing himself to it. I don't know. It's interesting. Um,
No, it's like the ultimate like bell curve meme. Like
mhm.
the guy has the intuition to like make like the Jedi moves, but it's purely on, you know, just like gut intuition. Um
Exactly.
so yeah, no,
Exactly.
I mean it was cool to watch. And it's not like it's a just like you flick a light switch and it's done. It's kind of like a it's a process where it's like he gives a little and then he gets a reaction and then the reaction kind of feeds his signals that he should double down and then it like that like process is like a feedback loop where then like ultimately, you know, 6 months go by and now it's like he's the crypto president, he's the Bitcoin president. And yeah, so it was interesting to watch that play out because like it was, you know, we kind of had like a front row view of it and it's just like day by day he's getting kind of pulled deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole.
Yes, he has this ability to sort of like hone into what is is driving people, and clearly he picked up on the very real fact that crypto hyphen Americans are 90 million people, 80 million people, and a large significant portion of those people only care about crypto, even if it's, you know, if it's 1%, that's still millions of people.
No, and he thinks it's more than gun owners. Like he thinks that crypto people are more fervent and there's more of us than gun owners. And you know, the I think what's unique about Trump is that he actually listens. I know that's maybe not what people would actually say, like think when they think Trump is, oh, he's a like listener, but he listens to people. And so he talks to people all day long, and then he hears what they want to talk about. And then he kind of it seems like he prioritizes his platform based on like the things that come up the most in conversation. Like whatever has the most mind share is the thing that he like spends the most time on. And so the thing is legitimately popular and he says something about Bitcoin publicly, and then the next day, 10% of his conversation, somebody mentions Bitcoin to him because they're like, oh, you know, I saw what you said. That was awesome, yada, yada. He zeroes in on that. And so I think that's like, he listens to the people like any good CEO selling a product, like you listen to the customers and like if the customers say they want this, then you sell more of that. And so no, he figured it out very quickly.
For crypto and DeFi professionals looking to contribute to a team committed to innovation in digital assets, Fidelity Investments is now hiring. Why Fidelity? For starters, they've been exploring Bitcoin and blockchain since 2014. They were the first traditional asset manager to launch a native crypto business and among the first to launch a Bitcoin exchange-traded product. Innovation is in their DNA. Fidelity invests in their talents by supporting and developing associates through continued education opportunities, casual crypto-focused discussion groups, and on-the-job experience of working with new technologies. If you want to work on cutting-edge products and explore the new frontier of DeFi and blockchain, Fidelity is for you. Their products continue to improve and evolve, staying ahead of this rapidly changing digital asset landscape. So go ahead, explore Fidelity Crypto Careers today by going to crypto.fidelitycareers.com to learn more. That's crypto.fidelitycareers.com. Fidelity is an equal opportunity employer.
Well, let's get you introduced to the audience, David Bailey, CEO of Bitcoin Magazine. Appreciate you taking the time in
Yeah,
your
man.
day to come on the program. One thing that I wanted to talk about with you is sort of the Bitcoin movement and its evolution in this institutional post ETF nation states are looking to adopt it. Trump is in love with it. He's the big crypto president, Bitcoin president. Is it losing its ideological edge as part of this adoption?
Yeah, I don't think so at all. And I get how on the surface these things seem like they're in conflict. I've definitely I've had many points in time where I'm like, wow, from Occupy Wall Street to, we are Wall Street. But in a sense, we are occupying Wall Street, except this time instead of being out on the street, we're buying the building and we're kicking them out the door. So I think like this is what victory looks like. Like we are eating the institutions of society. We have infiltrated, every part of the economy, every part of every societal institution, and there are Bitcoiners on the inside of that institution. And the ideology hasn't changed, and Bitcoin hasn't changed. It's just become grown to a certain size where the power dynamic between this constituency and the existing power structure is starting to uh, uh, have to be find a new equilibrium. Let's say,
That makes sense. And you've said you view Bitcoin as a political movement
yeah.
rather than just the technology. But
Yeah, it's the politics of not wanting politics. It's like the uh removing politics and politicians from our money is fundamentally, money is a deeply societal, institution, like at its very core, and it underwrites the entire political system. So like those things are political. And so, yeah, it's like the absence of politics is politics in and of itself. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that Bitcoin is just it's inevitable, and we're just like the drums of war beat towards its inevitability, and I think that ultimately we are on a path for Bitcoin becoming the reserve asset of the world. Um, and I think that that's going to happen much sooner than people think.
it's kind of funny. Trump, in in a way, is coming off very Bitcoin Bitcoin like with his beef that he has with the Federal Reserve. Uh, it's giving Bitcoiner energy for sure. When you think about
And I'll just say on that front too, like one of my big takeaways from this election is that these societal institutions and these political institutions that like as a Bitcoiner, as someone who was like got into Bitcoin when I was young and I was like had a perspective on the world, these institutions seemed like the all controlling powers. Like, there's just like this can't be defeated, have their tentacles across everything. And what I've realized is that these institutions are way weaker and way more fragile than like people appreciate. And like not only can they be defeated, like they will be defeated. Like I mean, our political capital. I feel like amongst like just my personal network, etc., like Bitcoin is still a relatively small thing, like, and my network probably skews pretty strongly towards like being native to this stuff, and it still seems like it's a minority of all of the different mind share of the stuff you interact with in your daily life, and it's already powerful enough to challenge these institutions. When this thing grows 10x from here, like, we are the most powerful political force in the world by far. And, the Federal Reserve is just a bunch of nerds. At the end of the day, the only power that they have is given to them through a democratic process. If we are if we are the tip of the spear of a democratic process for the future for our money, like, we dictate to the Federal Reserve ultimately what their future is. So it's interesting to see that.
So, can you give us like a lay of the land of nation state adoption? I actually like ChatGPT'd it yesterday. I was like, who's doing what? What's the sort of where is this sort of seeing some momentum? And I obviously El Salvador has been doing this quite some time. I think there's a country in I think the I forget which African country, the central
African Republic.
yes, they're also looking at it. And then that's really it though. But
You gotta subscribe to Pro, get the better
yeah,
ChatGPT
yeah, yeah.
model. Yeah, no, I mean there's a lot going on. I think like different phases that are unfolding around the world. I think probably the most developed that's out there is on Bitcoin mining. I would say Bitcoin mining like, or sovereign Bitcoin mining has kind of hit the inflection point of um like, it's a mainstream thing now. There's probably about, if I had to guess, 50 countries that are doing it.
So
And
what is that? I don't know what that is.
when a country does some sort of public-private partnership with a Bitcoin miner and they tap excess power capacity that they have in the country to mine Bitcoin and rev share with the customer. I mean, every place there's a different model. I mean, I wouldn't say that there's just like one way it's happening, but um, there's just lots and lots of countries, especially developing countries where the grid infrastructure or their power infrastructure is shit, and they have excess capacity at some massive plant that got subsidized by government spending to get built out, and it's just free money for them to hook up with a Bitcoin miner and offload that energy. So that's just been a proven model, and now lots of countries are doing it, and countries you would not expect are doing it, and it's not like at a small size. Like, I'd say, you know, uh, for 50 countries to be doing it, to put a country in that basket, I'm talking about a country using like 100 plus megawatts of power, and some of these countries are using gigawatts of power. So, pretty massive scale.
Yeah, it's awesome for the Bitcoin network.
It is, but it squeezes the miners, and, like, it's
Mhm,
really hard to compete with a country that has no cost basis,
mhm.
for its energy when that's, 80% of your marginal cost on mining. So,
Well, that's always a tough business. I mean, you have to deal with the operational costs of and energy costs. It's a lot is out of your control.
yeah, and then add to it a country where it's like, "Hey, if we can get more than 0, it's a win," and then they're just, putting more and more hash rate on. So, I think that's happening, and there's probably already a couple countries that are dependent upon the mining industry in their country for the solvency of the country. And I would put places like, well, I mean, definitely something like Bhutan, where it's like
Mhm.
50% of the GDP of the country now is from their mining income. But
That's
there's a
insane.
yeah, it might even be higher than that. It's an insane number. So there's a few countries that are like, really deep on the mining side. And then, once you start getting into mining, then it's a natural progression to like, okay, well, what are you doing with the Bitcoin? Like, are you selling the Bitcoin? Are you holding the Bitcoin? How are you holding the Bitcoin? Like, what institutions are responsible for holding the Bitcoin? What institutions are responsible for underwriting or overseeing the build out of these Bitcoin mining facilities? And so, like, just to like make these things happen requires like implementation of some structure where there's like, now, oh yeah, we have this project and this is the person who's in charge of it, and this is the person who makes sure, the what happens to the Bitcoin after it's mined, et cetera, et cetera. And so, like, that's how you start seeing the build out of government Bitcoin operations. And now we're at the stage where there are a variety of countries that are acquiring and buying Bitcoin. and uh, there, a few that are public, and then there's a few that are not. And I think that by the end of this year, I think there's going to be a fair number of sovereign nations that are bidding in the market. And what that looks like, it doesn't necessarily mean their central bank is bidding, though I think there will be some central bank buyers, but it could be sovereign wealth funds, especially when some of these countries, it's a little bit difficult to answer, like what is exactly the country versus what is the ruler or the leader. Like if you're a king or
Yeah.
like so, but effectively, like government money, sovereign money is flowing into Bitcoin market already in pretty significant size.
To what extent is this a matter of national security, like an edge, like in the case of a country that doesn't have Bitcoin, are they? I mean, is there some degree of like political risk that they run by kind of being out of the game?
I think as Bitcoiners, obviously, I mean, I think if you look forward and you take the view of like what's the terminal place that this is going to, it's like okay, Bitcoin is a new reserve asset, and like, is it a national security issue for your country not to have any like of the dominant reserve asset? Yeah, I mean, definitely. Um, would it be a national security issue if you had no gold and no dollars? Yeah,
Yeah.
like, definitely. Yeah. So I think from the country's perspectives, none of them or at least like I don't think it is a widely held view. And I'm not saying that there aren't people within the government who think this because again, Bitcoiners have infiltrated literally every institution on the planet. But there's not a government with a widely held view that Bitcoin is going to be the reserve asset of the world. And so most of them look at it purely from an economic business opportunity, like, okay, we have this excess power, we can make some extra money, like, this is off the books money, yada yada. And then there are a group of people that look at it from a political opportunity, which is like, okay, this is what the youth are doing. This
Hmm.
is what, this is the Dow Jones of the next generation. If I want to build a political base, I want to bring, this constituency underneath my power, my political faction, then I need to embrace this and I want to be like forward leaning on this. So, but that's not like them treating it as a national security issue. I think as more and more countries get involved, the national security element of it will become more and more dominant. And, I, yeah, I think there, like, I've heard some stuff about, uh, well, we won't get into it, but, like, let's just say that, like, the defense complex in multiple different places are now starting to take a view on these different things and how Bitcoin may be positive for, our national security strategy or, might negatively affect our national security strategy, and so I don't think they've really had a widely held view, and I think there probably is gonna be, like, in the US congressional testimony, later this year on this topic. So, um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a massive opportunity for the United States because the US is kind of screwed right now in the current monetary regime. And, we have the opportunity to basically rug everyone and and flip the script entirely, which would be the most American thing to do. And you know basically call a mulligan and say, okay, well, this is a new reserve asset and we're also dominant in this reserve asset,
Yeah.
as well. But it just so happens our debt's not priced to this asset, so Yahtzee,
Yeah. Uh, so what do you think is going to drive the market over the next 6 to 12 months? What are the dominant trends?
Yeah, the thing that's most exciting right now, is like Bitcoin on the balance sheet, securitization of
Hmm.
Bitcoin, basically. And what Saylor has pioneered and now is being like copied widely
All over the place.
all over the place. It's going to be copied way more. And I think that
Is that? I mean, let's talk about that. Is it starting to? At what point? Do we have our 15th MicroStrategy iteration?
oh, there's already over 100. There's like we're probably pushing 200 right now. And
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, and in a way, this is really a way to kind of insert leverage into a market that has not really a robust capital markets.
There's a lot of benefits actually for what this approach has, and why I think the premium has held up and will hold up for longer than people expect. Um, you know, uh I think this is going to get an order of magnitude bigger than it is right now. I think by the end of this year there'll be 1,000 companies, or like there'll be many hundreds of companies doing the strategy of different sizes. As long as you can add it, like you can dilute a dollar and add more than a dollar of value to your company, like this is going to be done. So, you know, right now we're still at the point where MicroStrategy is adding $2 for every dollar of dilution. And, you know, they have a $50 billion Bitcoin stack and $100 billion market cap. Like that's pretty significant size. And the premium has held up. So, um, I think you're going to see more companies. You're going to see bigger companies. We've you know, we've already talked to a few companies that are not as big as Sailors, but they're much bigger than Saylor was when he started. And I think you'll see some of those enter the market this year, or already have entered the market. And yeah, I mean, when you do the math, it's like, okay, if you have 1,000 companies buying Bitcoin every single day, spread around the world, you know, raising capital in every capital market around the world from every type of institutional investor around the world, the amount of capital they're going to bring into Bitcoin is going to make the price of Bitcoin go way up. There's just no other way to, you know, there's 700,000 Bitcoins owned by Bitcoin securities. Um, like if that number doubles or triples, there's not enough Bitcoin marginally to be satisfied at this price. The price is gonna have to go way up. Well, as the price goes way up, it's gonna be a massive tailwind behind all of these businesses. And so you're just gonna see increased retail and institutional FOMO into these stocks, which is gonna create a self-fulfilling prophecy. So
And what's the risk though to some of these plays? I mean, and I'd be keen to get your take on what separates like the wheat from the chaff, as it were. Or are they all effectively the same? Like, where's is there some nuance here?
yeah, so first off, like the play in general reminds me a lot of Grayscale, GBTC.
Hmm.
Um, and
Which famously blew up.
which famously blew up, but there's a key difference between them, and this is like the key difference. It's like the only relevant difference. Closed-end trusts, which is what GBTC was, are not able to buy their own shares back. So they can only trade on the secondary. Whereas with a company, they can buy their shares back. So if the company is trading at a discount to its assets, then buying its shares back is actually accretive to shareholders. It's like you're basically buying a Bitcoin for less than a Bitcoin. So like from that perspective, like these things are self-balancing. That you know they can find an equilibrium. And so you know, can they blow up? You know, the way I see them blowing up is there's going to be a lot of leverage taken out on this. There's going to be a lot of leverage taken out on the underlying collateral, and you know, I can go take my MicroStrategy shares over to Goldman and I can borrow against them.
Yeah.
And you know, when you have enough companies running this play and all these companies are correlated, and you have you know hundreds of millions of investors that are levering or borrowing against their equity portfolios, there's a lot of leverage introduced into the system. And so if there was a massive sell-off in Bitcoin that happened over an extended period of time, you could actually see a pretty significant deleveraging happen um, in just equity markets generally. So, you know, this is the intertwining of the legacy system and the crypto system where eventually like Bitcoin becomes like the tail wagging the dog or whatever. Like a bear market in Bitcoin could cause financial contagion, you know, globally, and there's really nothing anyone can do to stop it. I mean, that's the thing. And it's like, you know, you know, if you take a super cynical view, okay, I shouldn't say this, the people are gonna take me too serious about it, but like a super cynical view is like maybe the fastest way to get central banks to buy Bitcoin is like if you could just create like toxic Bitcoin backed securities, kind of like, you know, mortgages. And like if we could create like subprime Bitcoin and then, you know, just create a financial crisis, then the central banks will have to buy the asset just to bail out the too big to fail financial institutions. Boom, adoption. Then you have every central bank buying Bitcoin. So, you know, maybe there's just an indirect path to orange pilling the bankers, but I definitely see like this intertwining and the systemic risks that really become then like the risk of Bitcoin.
Well, MicroStrategy definitely has gotten to a point of size that it does seem systemically important to Bitcoin market. And if something were to go awry there, it would, I mean, probably be catastrophic.
You know, it would be, but I've seen worse, like, Mt. Gox failing. I mean, that was
Hmm.
like 90% of all the trading volume. They lost what, 850,000 Bitcoins. Pretty ugly.
Not
Um,
ideal.
Not ideal. The thing is like, it's how would they it all depends on how it would happen. I think in general, with the way Saylor has approached this play, like he is really massively conservative. Like I know people don't they like to frame it like, oh no, he's so over leveraged, he's gonna get no. The way he set this up is brilliant. Like it's almost like with GBTC when people were buying into GBTC, no one read the docs.
Hmm.
Okay, like no one's reading these transactions that Saylor's doing. This is all non-recourse. The equity holders can, the stock could go to $1 and Saylor is not going to be called on it on any of this. So he's taken a very conservative path, in my opinion. It will get more degen from here. Like, people are going to try to figure out how to beat MicroStrategy, and the way to beat him is to take on more risk. Like that's the answer. And so we're just going to keep going up the risk curve until, you know, someone's like, yeah, I'm 20x margin long on, a BitMEX or something like that. Like, so yeah, I don't know. I think this is just kind of just beginning, and I think it's going to get way bigger, and the game's going to change a lot. It's going to evolve a lot, and the risk is going to go up.
But this shows like there's just so much demand for this type of exposure.
The demand is unbelievable, and that's why I'm so bullish on the strategies, because I'm talking to people
Hmm.
all day. Like I was telling you a minute ago, like I've been this past week 20 phone calls a day on this topic, and
What's so attractive? Is it just like what is it? Is it so that you have this ability, this leverage?
it's one, the returns. It's like what
Mhm,
was so attractive about ICOs? Why did
mhm,
people want to get into ICOs? It's like 100x gains. I
mhm.
mean, like
Yeah.
nothing in crypto has product market fit except 100x gains. Okay, so Wall Street is even more degen than crypto is, but they are um
But you gotta fit it into the wrappers in which they're accustomed.
exactly. You go to where the buyer is.
Yeah.
And so, we are packaging Bitcoin in different forms, and we're taking it to the buyers. And these institutions, you give them a series of 3xers and 5xers on plays, and it's like, okay, this has our full attention. And so, like, we've been fielding nonstop phone calls from hedge funds I've never heard of. I've never interacted with before in my entire career. And it's like, yeah, we are a $10 billion AUM, hedge fund, and we want to put $200 million to work today, and we want to put another $200 million to work tomorrow. And, like the money is flowing right now. And so like there's an imbalance between supply and demand. It reminds me really, and I hate to keep using this analogy, but it's I think a good one is like it reminds me of the early days of ICOs where there was just a massive imbalance between the number of projects that were raising capital and the amount of investors that were looking to deploy. And so, like, eventually that won't be the case, but like, we had to get to thousands and thousands of these ICOs before it was like, okay, market's oversaturated. Um, and it's funny, like on that note, it's like if tokens have always been securities, then it's like, okay, that kind of makes the analogy even better, because it's like these are literally securities.
Yeah.
So um but yeah, I think the money is flowing. I think SoftBank getting involved in the Cantor transaction last week, massive inflection point. And like people don't realize this, but like who's SoftBank's money? Like SoftBank's money is sovereign money. Like that's Saudi money. So like Saudi is now doing Bitcoin treasury plays. So you have to kind of think through not just like the front office of these entities, but like what's the actual capital behind them and where's that flowing from? So yeah, no, I think this is going to get way bigger. And I mean we're again, we're talking to companies that are in the process of doing this. We have an organization called Bitcoin for Corporations that we do with MicroStrategy, and there is a ton of inbound, and there's an event actually next week, the Bitcoin for Corporations event with Michael Saylor at MicroStrategy's like annual user conference, and go look at the site. It's like packed out with companies. I think this is going to be like uh, a very very hot show. And then it's like, okay, well, the what I'd call the 60 IQ strategy
This is
of
in
just like
Orlando.
in Orlando. That's right.
Website's nice.
So, like putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet is like layer one of this strategy. There are so many layers to go deeper, and then it's like, okay, well, so you can scale the strategy vertically by like going to layer two, layer three, layer four, etc. But you can also scale the strategy horizontally, which is like go to every capital market on the planet. And so, like right now, there's a good number of countries that have these, but not even close to the majority of countries. And so, like, we're trying to underwrite 25 of these treasury companies in the top 25 markets by the end of this year. Like, that's our goal. Like, we're going to underwrite. Uh, right now, we're in the process of underwriting 5 of them that I think will close within the next 60 days. So it's like, you know, we're just cranking these things out.
This is crazy.
Yeah. So it's really just the securitization of Bitcoin, and then like Bitcoin moving from like an asset to like an asset class where there's
Mhm.
going to be a lot of Bitcoin securities within that.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this on the show. 2 points being, the first point being that Bitcoin has sort of matured into its own category. It's not even really cryptocurrency or part of the cryptocurrency asset class. It's really become something something quite unique and separate. And then the other point being, institutions are keen to figure out and work through ways to make their Bitcoin work for them.
Right? And institutions want liquidity, and
Mhm.
the Bitcoin market is liquid, and every other market is shit, to be honest. And I think it it's interesting, man. I mean, you can look at the ETFs. I think the ETFs are also telling about like what's the real liquidity. Like how much money has flowed into the Bitcoin ETFs, how much money has flowed into all the other ETFs combined. Compare the size of the two against each other. That's the real liquidity picture that's out
Yeah,
there. And so, yeah, but size begets size.
it does indeed. What do you think is the most overrated thing underpinning crypto right now?
I mean, I would say I would say crypto in general. The I don't know, man. I think crypto right now is in a tough spot. Uh and is really going through some level of crisis of confidence.
Mm,
It's pretty brutal out there for projects. I mean, talking as we're doing these Bitcoin treasury companies, we're talking to crypto funds that like their whole investment thesis is investing into tokens, but no, what tokens are making money? So it's like, okay, like what do you do if you're a fund and this is your specialty and this is your thing and everything you're investing into is nuking? So they're looking at Bitcoin treasury companies as like an alternative. It's like, okay, so this is it's telling, I think. And I think it's been surprising to me, and I've always been a Bitcoin maximalist, or I don't that's the right term, but Bitcoin only for quite a minute at least. And um you know, but even I was surprised to see like Ethereum like uh
so
really
brutal.
struggle. It really struggle. And I think if like if Ethereum gets flipped by Solana or one of these
It's
other,
over.
it's over. It's like now it means that there is no moat, and like every protocol you pick is just like, one season away from being flipped by the next thing, and the liquidity will never show up to hold these assets because it's too risky. And yeah, then it's over. And so it's like, okay, that's like a like I
No,
feel
that's
like
a
that's the
crazy market.
trajectory right now.
And that's a crazy market. The volatility is just insane when there's no like threshold. Um, or there's no, you're not sort of kept in your zone, as it were.
No, and people that I have, a lot of my friends. I mean, we bought Bitcoin Magazine from Vitalik. I mean, a lot
Mhm.
of my friends are like the earliest ETH guys and ETH founders, and some of these guys that are like have been ETH maxis for a long time. I mean, the first real crisis of confidence I've seen from them since Ethereum got started, and
Yeah, no,
so
it's bleak. It's honestly very bleak.
So I'm looking forward to the block becoming a Bitcoin only media data resource. And when that happens, come talk to us. Maybe
The
we can work
block,
together.
the block,
The Bitcoin block.
Bitcoin block, yeah, Bitcoin block. Well, thanks for taking the time. It was good chatting.
Yeah, man. Frank, good to see you. And kudos to y'all's team. Y'all are doing a good job. Good product. And I'll catch you later.
Thank you. Take care.
Ciao.
Mm-hmm.